Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. Now, each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry. Today, we're lucky enough to have a remarkable guest joining us, Tommaso Montagni, co-founder of Rubik. Tommaso, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, Barry. Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Glad to be on this podcast. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with us. So this is the part where we usually tell you a little bit about yourself, but who better to know about you than you? So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the company that you work at.
I am the co-founder of Rubik, and Rubik is a marketplace where for single-family homes, and we're connecting sellers of single-family homes to investors of single-family homes. So essentially, we are connecting these sellers of fix and flip or value-add investments to like real estate investors looking to either buy and hold the property, like buy and rent it, or fix and flip the property. So making this connection, that's kind of our core and expertise. And that's what we do at Rubik. And specifically myself at Rubik, I focus on the acquisitions and the disposition side, whereas my co-founders focus more on the technology side and building the tech that allows us to find these sellers. I'm more focused on the transactional side of actually transacting these homes between the seller and the buyer.
Fascinating. When you started this company, did you purposely try to find each other to like maximizing your strengths, or was it by chance that you just happened to complement each other so well?
So our story is quite interesting, actually. The simple answer is absolutely not. We all met the very first days of college, so we're all international. One from Bosnia, one from Kosovo, and I'm Italian, and we all happened to go to Colby College in the middle of nowhere in Maine. And at international orientation, we met each other, kind of something clicked, and we said, well, we're not going to just be here to do, just to study. Let's do something more. And so we said, well, let's start a business together. And shortly after, about a month later, we started our first business called Pack Mules, which was a online delivery store for students, a little bit like an Amazon Prime, if you will, but for exclusively colleges. And so we slowly grew that at Colby and a couple of other nearby schools, where we would deliver students some goods that they ordered online within 24 hours to their rooms, generally connecting local stores, but also like larger stores like Walmart, etc. We ran that for about 4 years, then left college and said, well, we're not going to go get a job. And at this point, let's go start something new. So we raised $15,000 from friends and family, moved to New York, and said, well, what are we going to do? We didn't have much money because $15,000 in New York will probably get you maybe a deposit on an apartment. We said, all right, let's start working in software, and let's start working in an industry that we like. And my co-founders and I have a background in or have a families in real estate, or at least adjacent to real estate, whether it's architecture or construction. And so we said, let's just dive into the real estate industry. Let's build some software for real estate like agents or real estate investors. So we just started cold emailing every foreign, like Bosnian, Italian, or Kosovar that worked in the real estate agents like industry in New York. Try to get meetings with them, and basically sat down and said, look, we're going to build anything you want in tech. Just tell us what you need, and we'll, or a problem that you have, and we'll try to solve it for you. We'll build some tech, and we'll try to make some money and start collaborating. And that's what we did for about 18 or so months. So we were just doing project by project and trying to learn about this industry, learning about the problems, understanding, where are the pain points in this industry? What do people actually need? And what do we want to actually build? And we were lucky enough for an accelerator program to actually give us some investment, ERA, Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator, great accelerator program in New York. They gave us about $100,000 in investment, and then the money we were making from these projects basically kept us alive. But we were essentially, or very specifically, we were living in a one-bedroom apartment all together, just crashing on this like single beds on in this apartment in the bedroom or in the living room. It was just pretty much, same thing as college, we just brought that back to New York, essentially. And so project after project after project, in the end, we realized that brokers were broke, so we didn't want to work with them, and that real estate investors had all the money, and so we should have worked with them. And so we built a software that essentially allowed real estate investors to identify investment properties on the MLS, on the multiple listing software, like listed online. So an investor could say, well, I'm looking for these types of investment, let's say fix and flip investments in neighborhoods that are growing in value. Over the past 4 years, they've grown this much. And I'm looking for, let's say, properties that I can add this much value in and potentially get this much return. And so we allowed them to filter the MLS by these kind of financial metrics. Realized that they were paying us, and charging people a SaaS fee. They were paying us $100 a month and making ungodly amounts more money than we were. And so we said, well, hold on a second. What if we start buying these homes and then reselling it to them? And so we said, all right, nobody can use the software anymore. We'll use it internally. We'll put these homes under contract. So we'll get a contract signed, and then we'll reassign this contract to the real estate investor, the same one that was using our platform. But now, instead of making $100 a month, we can maybe make $5,000 to $10,000 per home, almost like a transaction fee rather than like a SaaS monthly fee. And so that's how we kind of got into the wholesaling business. This kind of system of buying and reselling that contract is called wholesaling in the US. So we started wholesaling, and then we started kind of expanding this and growing it. And we realized that these large institutions are the ones that buy the most. And so then we started doing hundreds of transactions towards institutional investors. And now we've kind of grown from there. So now we're not only serving institutions, but also middle market buyers, small-time investors, and kind of growing this marketplace no longer just on listings that are on the MLS, but also directly from owners who want to sell their homes. And so now we've kind of matching this marketplace and growing it as we go.
It sounds like you're really passionate about this and this particular job, which is quite natural for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Was it something that you were always interested in, or did you just happen to find that this was something that you were really interested in on your journey?
Well, I've always loved real estate, and I never really wanted a boss. So I guess those two things together kind of combined. But no, my passion for real estate has been here for a long, long time, and my passion for tech and matching a really outdated industry with the technology kind of was the infusion of the perfect kind of infusion and the perfect goal for mine. And so that's kind of my co-founders and I, all three of us want to go down this path. And so, that's kind of how passion and this industry kind of come together to form what we're doing right now.
Being able to predict the market, being able to read the market, that's quite a good skill to have, but it's also one that probably very few people do. How do you find reading the market? How do you know when you think there's going to be a challenge coming up in the marketplace? And if so, what can you do to prepare yourself?
That's a great question. And a question that if we were to try to solve it would probably be the end of Rubik. But we try to continuously stay up to date with what investors are looking for and continuously kind of make sure that our properties align with what they're looking for rather than the other way around. So our whole approach around Rubik, and the approach that I think that is the way should be done in the industry and often overlooked, is that the properties should be sourced based on the demand, not finding a property and then looking for a buyer. So if there is, so for example, the way that we expand into new markets is by how much demand for buyers that we have, not if there are good deals in that market. So if we believe Birmingham, Alabama is a great market, we don't necessarily open that market. But if 5 or 6 customers of ours, or perhaps hundreds of smaller investors, request Alabama as a location, then we will start going to look for homes in that market. So as long as we're going from the buyer's demand to the supply, then I think we should be fine to continue to move in this forward direction. But absolutely, it has been a challenging year. A lot of buyers, especially in the institutional front, have stopped buying. But that's given us kind of also even more incentive to really start from that buyer. So we, at the beginning of this year, a couple of our largest clients stopped purchasing homes. And so we had to kind of reassess with other buyers and say, well, what are you guys buying so that we can go source for you guys. And so really focusing on that buyer side is what drives the whole marketplace.
That's quite a pragmatic approach to take, and it's nice to hear that you have that. Do you see yourself always in a growth phase, or do you take the opportunity when perhaps there isn't that high demand to kind of stabilize things and get ready for the next growth phase?
We have taken this year, I think we are always in a growth stage. However, there are growth stages of different parts of the company. So we're always a growth stage in terms of learning. We're always a growth stage in terms of, let's say, improving the buyer's experience and improving the seller's experience. But for example, we've taken this year as not being a growth stage in terms of expanding the team, for example, but perhaps optimizing the team. So we've really focused on growing the optimization of the team rather than actually growing the number of team members that we have. And so we've kind of slowed down our hiring this year. We did a lot of hiring last year. And so now we've said, well, with all of this hiring that we've done last year, let's optimize the people that we have in order to continue growing, but perhaps slow down on the actual head count, for example, and this type of stuff. So growing in some aspects and perhaps not as much, and pausing and really reassessing other aspects.
So you mentioned there growing and employment and recruiting. What kind of qualities are you looking for in people when you want them to join your particular team?
Number one quality is, well, do I want to work with you? You can have any skill level or whatever you can be the smartest person alive, but do I actually want to work with you day in, day out? And are you someone who's, able to give your opinion, have a good opinion, and want your opinion to matter, in the sense that we want people who won't just do, but will actually think. And so that's kind of the first, the main thing that we're looking for in our, let's say, cultural interview, which is kind of one of our 3 interviews. Clearly, the technical skills are very important, but we know that people can learn those technical skills. I don't have my co-founders and I don't really have we never went to college for a technical, let's say, education in terms of computer science, but we learned that on the way, and here we are now leading tech at Rubik, etc. I never went to school for real estate yet. Here we are in the real estate industry building this marketplace. So we know that can learn, or that can be learned, but it's really about, is there the willingness to learn, and is there, the cultural aspect is there? Is it, are you willing to work with a global team and really understand people and want to help and support people? So those are the kind of the main things that we're looking for in team members, and we've been able to find them worldwide. We are international. We hire in the United States, but just like we hire in Turkey or in Kosovo or in the Philippines or wherever we can find talent, we will basically hire from.
Do you find having to manage people from so many different parts of the world to be quite challenging at times? Or is that something that you actually find a lot of enjoyment out of?
It can be challenging at times, but I think it allows to create a very well-diverse team that works very, very, that creates an environment that is more prone to innovation, growth, and sprouts great ideas. So even though it is challenging and can have its challenges, I mean, time zone alone is one of the largest challenges, just working together all over the world. But I think that it is vastly, let's say, vastly more important to have that innovation that comes from all over the world, and that kind of open-mindedness and thinking from all over the world, rather, and these smaller challenges can be overcome with that respect.
So you mentioned the challenges of time differences there. Does it afford you the opportunity to be able to have that strong work-life balance, or do you find that you need to sacrifice your time, so to speak, to meet the needs of the business?
I think one of the main things about that we try to install in everybody is that there must be a work-life balance. However, we always try to at least have 3 or 4 hours of the day where we're all working together. So whether it's in New York, somebody has to, our workday maybe starts a little bit later, ends a little bit longer, whether in the Philippines it starts a little bit earlier, just to accommodate and to have that overlap. That's something that we need to accommodate, and that's just what a worldwide team, I think, needs to do. But we do encourage a work-life balance, because we know, and we encourage people to take time off and not to overkill themselves, because the best work is done when you have the ability to think and you have that mental room to really think and grow. And so that's how we think people can contribute best to Rubik and also stay at Rubik long term, because in the end, we're not hiring for somebody to just come in and do a job in the next 6 months, but we're hiring for somebody to come in and exit Rubik with us.
And Tommaso, how do you wind down? What kind of things do you do to relax and take your me time, to speak?
I think one of the greatest things recently this has happened has been these focus modes on the iPhone, where you can let certain channels of incoming communication in and not others. Very specifically, I will never not let certain priority phone calls from work come in, or for some text messages from work come in. But if I can eliminate all the ones that are not necessary and make sure I don't even see them, that's a great way to say, I can detach work and life, even though kind of I'm always working, whether that's a Friday evening or Sunday morning. So that's something I found very, very useful. And then if possible, just detaching from the phone and detaching from the internet completely has been a great kind of stress reliever for me, especially for 12 to 15 hour periods. If I can do that at least once a week completely, then that's a great kind of reboost for the week ahead. There has never been a time in the last 2 years or so that I've regretted not looking at my phone for a 12-hour period or so, especially maybe on a Saturday afternoon or something like that. So I remember then when we first came to New York, we used to work pretty much 14 days on or 13 days on, 1 day off. And that was fine. That was in a growth phase. We were still young. We were all living together at the time and kind of living on top of each other at that point. But it got overwhelming. And what ended up happening is that after 3 or 4 months of this, you ended up having to take, or you were forcing yourself to take 4 or 5 days of completely unproductive work. And it wasn't really as productive as one might expect a continuous, work regiment would be. So now having that weekly breaks, making sure that I can really segment what is important, what needs to be taken care of, and what can be taken care of on Monday morning, that's been a game changer and kind of allowed for work-life balance and also to enjoy the beautiful city of New York that I live in.
What time of the day do you work most efficiently? Are you a morning person, an evening person? What's your schedule look like?
I think I'm more of a late morning person. So the most efficient time of my day for work specific would be probably from 10 to 1. I've already completed all of my calls with the team. So all of our acquisitions calls, all of our founder calls, all of our leadership meetings. And so I segment out at least a 2.5, let's say, hour period, between 2 to 3 hour period, where nothing really comes in and I can really focus on one thing that day, which just requires a 2 to 3 hour period of concentration with no distractions. And that can be my time to get stuff done for that day. And then given my role is more on sales, then the afternoon I spend it doing a lot more of immediate tasks that come in my way, whether there's a problem with our software or some sort of underwriting issue or a customer that requires some extra attention. Then I'm able to do all those right now needed moments. So that's kind of how I plan my day. All the meetings at the beginning, a 2 to 3 hour period of kind of my concentrated work, and then the rest of the day, kind of mainly afternoon after lunch, of jumping in and solving issues and doing anything that is needed from the team on that side.
So being an entrepreneur can be very demanding on you. Let's say there's a challenge or a particularly hard time, how do you stay motivated? How do you keep going when things look tough?
The biggest thing is to have have co-founders, at least one. I'm lucky enough to have 2. There have been so many times where I don't know if I would have kept going if I didn't have another person at the other side of the room be motivated that day. I will think everything is going down, and someone else will think that that it's a positive day and things are going up. And if you think that things are going down, at least you're together and you can work together to build that small light that there is. You can build it up together. So I think that fundamentally, having a co-founder or a co-founding team is probably the biggest motivation factor when it comes to those days where just things are not going any direction, or they're probably going backwards or wherever they're going. But there's many of them. It's a startup. You'll have weeks of everything is going to hell, and then weeks of everything is going amazing. And so having that co-founding team, especially when things are going bad, is really a game changer. And when things are going great, it's even better, because things are going great for multiple people. So you're sharing that success.
It's great to hear that you have that support structure in there. And like you said, I think it's quite nice when you have a group of people who can sometimes pick you up when you're on the low side. Have you got any philosophies in life that you may have picked up from other people, books, podcasts, or documentaries that had a big impact on the way that you work?
Well, just fundamentally how we approach Rubik. I think one of the books that shaped our approach was the book by Peter Thiel, 0 to 1, really focusing on kind of building a minimal viable product, seeing if that works, and then growing on that rather than building too much and not and perhaps not evaluating whether that's actually creating value for anyone. So I guess from a work standpoint, that's been very, very helpful for me. I of course listen to the Lex Friedman podcast. Lots of interesting characters there. See how other people kind of work in larger companies, whether that's Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos' recent podcast, etc. And kind of as a life philosophy, or like as a personal philosophy, I try to approach things generally speaking with a smile. So at least looking at the positive things first, whether that's in people or whether that's in the work I have to do, whether I like it or not. I try to look at the positive outlook first, or at least try to take a moment to think about what the positive things are that's going to help me do, or what the outcomes could be. So that's a little bit about how I try to approach even the things that I really don't want to do. And, in a startup, most likely, most of the things are not things that you're like enjoying to do, but things that ultimately you will enjoy and reap the benefits of after you've done those things.
I really love that answer, especially because that helps me segue into the next question. You mentioned Elon Musk there as one person. Is there anyone out there who you'd love to swap places with for a day just to see how they perform? And what do you think you would gain from swapping roles for that day?
I think, since I mentioned Elon Musk, I'd love to keep going on that trend. I think I really, a person's persona on camera or in the public is very different to probably what's, on a personal level. And I don't know, anything to do with Elon Musk on a personal level, but maybe I wish I did. But at least I could get a little bit of investment for Rubik. But I would love to see how Elon structures his day, and how he's able to be so actually productive, because I feel like he's one of the people who at least portrays himself as most productive, especially you can see it with all the companies that he's running. And so I would love to learn a little bit more about how he manages his day, how he's able to be so productive, and how I could implement that in my own life. But again, I don't think I would want to swap for too long. I'll learn my lessons and then come back to what I'm building, because this is what I love to do. I love to be in the real estate industry, and kind of what I'm doing here at Rubik is almost like a dream, especially with my co-founders that I've known for so long. And that's kind of I'm living a little bit of a dream here in New York, and with the Rubik and everyone here.
Another great answer. Thank you for sharing that. And the final question. Let's say there's someone watching this who's maybe in a similar situation as you were and wants to become an entrepreneur, but maybe they've got some cold feet, or they're thinking, oh, maybe I can't do it. What advice would you give to someone who was in that situation?
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why we've gotten to where we are today is because we gave ourselves no other option but to do this. To be completely frank, our only option was either you come here, you start a startup, and you're trying to make it work, or you go back home to Europe, and that's pretty much, and then you live your life there, basically. So we put ourselves in a position where we had no other choice for the good or for the bad. But that definitely pushed us, and that side of the giving up part was never really an option. And so that, I think, was very, very helpful. But another big piece of advice that I learned really early on is you can test out ideas by building so little. You don't have to build any product. You don't have to build, you could just test out an idea with a landing page and with 150 phone calls. And, and I think that's more than enough to start testing out some basic assumptions of every idea. So I wouldn't, like, if somebody's trying to build something for a few months and then is going to test it after a few months, just think about how you could build that in 2 to 3 days and start testing it on day 4 or maybe, day 5, but definitely not 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Amazing. That is some great advice. Thank you so much for sharing it. Tommaso, I just want to say thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, Barry, for having me on, and the pleasure to be on this on the Temi podcast. Hopefully on another time as well.
Oh, hopefully, yes. The pleasure's all ours, Tommaso. So that was Tommaso Montagni, co-founder of Rubik.